Today, it's Edwin's Monday evening property rant. Hello again, it's Martin North from Digital Finance Analytics. Well, latest post covering finance and property news with a distinctively Australian flavour. Monday again, Edwin again. Hi, Edwin.
G'day, Martin. How you going? It's Delusion and Illusions week this week, I think.
Yeah, and there might be an illusion or a delusion just behind you. Is that Dusty?
Yeah, that's Dusty. Wants to say hello to the audience and wish everybody a Merry Christmas.
Pet's Corner, of course. But yeah, interesting state of affairs we find ourselves in at the moment, eh?
Well, that's right. I mean, now we've got contributors in the mainstream media telling the Fed to stop pretending everything's imaginary. That it's just a figment of their imagination. That inflation may not just be transitory. Well, let's go into the next thing. Let's start telling them that it's to just go eat. Just tell the people to let's go eat pie. Just go eat cake, as they say.
Let them eat cake. That has a French connection to it, doesn't it?
That's right. I mean, they're the masters of illusion and delusion, aren't they?
Exactly. Well, let's get straight into it because you've got a few war stories to tell, haven't you?
Oh, look, we do, and I guess we've got to bring the viewers up to speed with what happened in the last couple of property scenarios that we were looking at. Predominantly, this is the setting that we've been talking about over the last perhaps 18 months, maybe even 2 years, or maybe even a little bit more, Martin, with regards to the differentiation between the appetite for housing, as in freestanding homes, and the appetite for apartments. So the first one is the house that I've been looking at and tweeting about in Linfield in the North Shore, where the background on that is the fact that the owners got offered 2.5 million prior to the property going on the market by a private party. The property was taken to market. The vendor's expectation was 2.7 at the time. They didn't accept the 2.5 offer. The agent was having a hard time marketing the property. They were guiding it at 2.5, and up to the 2 days prior to the auction, there was really no interest other than our clients and us. We showed some videos of some issues with the property in the subfloor areas, and lo and behold, Martin, on the day we got four syndicate buyers, Chinese syndicate buyers, and another young couple with both their parents, both partners, their parents supporting them and egging them on to take on the syndicates, which is one of my tips. Never go toe to toe with a Chinese syndicate buyer or a builder developer, for that matter. Not in those areas. You won't have deep pockets to do so. The property actually got sold, Martin, for $3.2 million,
which is silly money, isn't it?
Look, it's silly money, and this is the takeaway. As we're talking to our team there and also our clients, we were just discussing the whole thing, and I had a chance to speak to a couple of the syndicate groups. Obviously, I know them from years of being involved in the industry. We know who they are, we know what they do, and it's basically Chinese syndicates that are either playing with other people's money, or as we say, easy money, or some would say funny money. So they don't really care what the price is on the day. They just want it. And look, one of my team members said they're just preparing for, obviously talking to them in Mandarin. One of the syndicates is really preparing homes in the area, which has that Chinese appetite, that high demand, buying and preparing homes for the next plane load of wealthy Chinese to come over from everywhere else other than China. That you and I have been talking about, that our Wechat chatters have been telling us they are on the way, and they're sitting at the international ports all over the world, ready to board planes and come over. And these are the people that have already obtained PR over the last 2 years, and that is because of the easy pathways to PR in medicine, IT, and also in the finance sector.
Absolutely, yeah. Well, you've been calling us for some time, and once again, you can see the fallout from that particular angle of attack.
Well, that's right. And this is where our viewers and our followers need to be very, very careful. And that is, if they're going to be coming into the market, you just don't go toe to toe. Look, we had our mandate. It was just a little bit over the 2 million, way below the what we knew was going to be the reserve that the agent was setting. We know the agent very well. And that's as far as we were going to go with it, because in terms of land value, the house, the rectification work, the fact that the property itself, it wasn't being a lot of the issues with the property weren't forthcoming. So we knew the inherent issues. We knew where logic set in, and we also added a bit for emotion, because obviously our buyer wanted to move into the area. So outside of that, Martin, beyond that, and let's say beyond the 2.5 to the 3.2, it was just silly money, funny money, and everything in between. And the poor bastards that I really felt sorry for were the young Chinese professionals that had both their parents, both from both sides there, egging them on, going toe to toe with the syndicates, bidding 1,000 increments of 1,000 at a time. And when these guys were just coming in at 15, 20,000 on top of their 1,000, when that sort of thing happens, you just step back. What's the point of inflating the price? But they did. They got caught up in the whole emotion. And that's the unfortunate thing, Martin. But again, it's certain pockets. It's not all over Sydney, because other auctions that we went to, properties got passed in, and in some cases, auctions even got cancelled.
Yeah, well, I've seen quite a few over the last few weeks that got passed in. In fact, in some cases, as you say, they decided not to go to auction, but suddenly they went for private treaty instead, which tells you something, right? But there's another interesting point. There is a conceptual difference between value and price in that circumstance, isn't there? Because effectively, you derive the value from the various parameters, the land and everything else, and the costs of remediating it, etc., right? But that doesn't necessarily equal price.
Well, that's correct. And there's no development upside. There's only so much land to the block. There's only so much usable land. And as a matter of fact, when you start looking into the nuts and bolts of it, I'm of the opinion, and my client has a bit of a background in engineering as well, in architecture, and we were of the opinion that you wouldn't be able to build. You wouldn't be able to be granted the same building envelope that the current property rests on. So it's really one of those things that you have to be very careful as to what you buy. But again, the difference in this case, the difference in this scenario is who's buying and why are they buying. Now, there was another report by, I didn't bring it up, I just thought of it as we were being starting the podcast, and there was another story in Mount Druitt, in Old Mount Druitt, in an area where it had been, the area has been rezoned, and the real estate put out an article with regards to how this particular individual bought the property as an investment so many years ago for $490,000, and it just got sold for $2 million. The real story in that, Martin, was the fact that the owner of the property was given the wrong price guide, and the agent was underquoting it, because that area got rezoned for high-rise development. And more so, over the last 2 years, where the government has been pushing for between Mount Druitt and St. Mary's to develop or to build 3,000 new dwellings, and the developers are going to have the support of the state government for that pocket there, for that growth area. So there was, so again, if you read behind the stories, if you look at you look at behind the scenes, you understand as to why certain properties achieve certain prices. Yeah, there are some out of line stuff, and a lot of it comes back to emotion, and that's because, again, for transparency and for clarity, I myself have been dealing with, as we call them, our Kryptonian clients, where they've made a shitload of money through crypto in the last 3 years, and their mandates are, we just want that property, and we want it because we like it, we like the area, we like the school, and regardless of the fact, if we have to go toe to toe with another interested party, we will pay a little bit more than your average Joe. Why? Because they've made a good decent coin on crypto or shares. So that this is where you and I we look at it Individually, we look at it very with a magnifying glass. We look at the markets with a magnifying glass, whereas the mainstream just paint a broad stroke over the whole Sydney market and call it that. And then you get people like Louis Christopher that also bring the mainstream into shape, knocking them on the head with the true numbers that get reported in terms of auction clearance rates on the weekends, where we're almost anywhere between 6 to 10% apart from Louis' numbers to the ones that are propagated by the mainstream media.
Yeah, well, it's the continuation of the big lie, isn't it, to try and get people to come in. Now, there's another North Sydney story to tell as well as we look at this at the moment, right? And again, it's got a Chinese connection.
Well, that's right, and this is the flavour of the month. Again, or the flavour of the suburb, I should say, with regards to areas, pockets of Sydney that had a very strong Chinese influence. Now we've got a reverse effect where these properties that originally got sold for $1.2 and $1.3 million off the plan in 2016, 2017, and now they got put back on the market with very low price points. And these, of course, are apartments. And if you recall, when things were different, when migration policies were a little bit different, when before COVID, and they were and students were coming in droves, and overseas temporary visa holders were coming in droves, and that was fueling the rental market in these areas with these appetites. It was just you really again, you couldn't go near them, and you didn't want to touch them anyway because you didn't know how they were going to be built or how they were going to be finished. So in this particular auction that happened during the week, 5 mortgagee in possession apartments went under the hammer. 2 of the 3 got sold, and the auctioneer and the agent and the liquidator, which is there on the right hand side of the video, they were absolutely shitting bricks because, more to the point, they had no choice but to open the bid with very low opening bids, and we didn't get. Well, one of the properties got as high as the ones that got sold for 30% below the original, on average below the original market price. And the fact that only 2 out of the 3 in an affluent area, affluent suburb, near the railway station, near the village feel of this area, again in the North Shore, that they didn't achieve the sales. So there's your different, again, there's your other market that you and I have been talking about in our podcast.
Absolutely. It's a very important object lesson. And, people need to be really, really careful because you've got to go granular. You've got to look at the individual micro markets and what's going on to understand how to position in those micro markets. You can't just take those average high-level indices and say, well, it's gone up X%, so therefore everything's gone up X% or whatever it is. You have to do the work, and I just keep saying that to Edwin because I find so many people just haven't done the work and they end up with a lemon. And that lemon, of course, is very bitter, not just at the point when you first buy it, but for years later as well.
Oh, that's right, and that's a fact, and you see it over and over again, and again, more also with the fact that they're relying on silly and bad advice from the agents that are acting on behalf of the vendors.
Yeah, exactly right. Now let's talk about Wechat chatter, right? And basically, China's economic growth is slow.
This is interesting, Martin. This is interesting. This is Professor Dao Kui Li, which is, he's a prominent professor, prominent economist in China, very renowned, and supported by the central government. So this is something that he's been pushing, and he's been telling, and the Wechat chatters believe that his mandate is to really start educating and convincing the mainland Chinese that were either very young in the mid 80s or were born after the mid 80s, basically when China opened itself up to to be a part of the Western world. So basically, he's saying, look, you've had a great 40 or so years, and now things are turning and things are going to get hard, and it's going to be a very slow recovery. So if this is what's coming out of, you could say, the central government mouthpieces, one can only start imagining or thinking what's, how bad is it really there? But you and I, we've been sharing, again, through our Wechat chatters, some of the real stories and what's been happening. And we've been preparing our Wechat chatters as to the supply chain issues, the supply chain crunches, the fact that we're still reliant, or Australia for that, because we obviously bring it back to how it's going to affect us here in Australia, and more to the point, what it means for property markets and how the demographics and how the sands are going to shift and change. Soon after the mainstream start pushing out the news. So, it's one of these things that now the central government are trying to get the message across for this generation, basically, and a lot, this group laying the middle class, which is going to have a huge effect on us, because effectively what they're basically saying is tighten your belts. The slow recovery it means that you have to trim down on your standards of living, which for us, what it means is we're more and more confirmations that we are not going to get the numbers of overseas students. The universities are going to be struggling for overseas students. If the economy is in dire straits in China, well, then there's going to be, obviously, and you'll speak more about it, no doubt, with regards to the demand on our natural resources, on the iron ore, and also on the agricultural sector. So what does that mean for us? Our standard of living is just going to increase. This so-called transitory inflation is just going to be going to be here for a very, very long time. And what does that mean to even those that have got mortgages or that are sitting on loans that are about to click over, and they have to decide whether they go in fixed rates or variable, and are the repayments going to be the same? How is that going to affect the lifestyle? So these are changes. These are significant changes and things that are happening overseas, over in China, which is going to have a direct impact on how we move, what we do, how we move forward, and in terms of what sort of budgets we're going to have, because obviously if the main government, my understanding would be, correct me if I'm wrong, but if the government is no longer bringing in the big bucks from taxes on the mining industry and on the agricultural sector, well, where's the money going to come from? It's going to be from the SMEs, and it's going to be from the everyday Joe's families that are trying to make a living and trying to buy into the market. Correct me if I'm wrong, man.
Well, I think there's a couple of observations. The first one is it's quite likely that interest rates will be higher sooner than the RBA is currently indicating, because they can't just ignore what's happening in the US and other places around the world. Now, okay, the variant of coronavirus might dampen that activity, but actually, if you look at the numbers that came out of the US last week, inflation was very strong, and it looks as though it's embedded. So rates are going to go up. Rates will go up here. So a lot of people are going to have a bit of a shock, particularly, as you say, those resetting from current fixed rates to the next set of fixed rates. But of course, a lot of people are now moving back to variable rates, but those variable rates are variable, which basically means they can go up if need be. So that's the first point. The second one is the international trade relationships with China, which of course has been the absolute huge engine of economic support for Australia for at least a decade, is stuttering, simply because demand from that quarter is coming off. We've still got some of the political stuff too, and even the price of iron ore has come way back from where it was. So it'll be very interesting to see how all of that is translated into the MYEFO. That's the mid-term economic forecast, which is coming out later in the week from the Treasurer. Be interesting to see what assumptions they have made, because last time around they were pretty aggressive in their assumptions. It seems to me that if they are as aggressive now, then we could be skating on very thin ice, because there are more negative indicators. And if Chinese growth continues to wobble along, and remember, we've got the property slowdown going on over there at the moment with Evergrande and the other property sector all coming off, well, a lot of people who are suddenly thinking, well, hang on a moment, the price I paid was too high, I'm not going to pay that again. So there's a lot of adjustment to be coming through from the Chinese economy, and as you say, directly it will hit our front door. and that could have a significant impact on the economic performance of Australia and how much tax we take and how much ability we have to be able to actually make our own economy work. So very interesting to watch this.
Yeah, look, and also, Dr. Lee, or Professor Lee, also brings out the point that the fact the local governments, the local and the regional governments that control those areas, they're running out of money. They're running out of money quick, smart, and their medical care system is also running out of money. So things are just blowing out there. And if the local governments and the regional governments are running out of money, that means that there's no more money coming in to one of the critical points that he raises in his article is that the staff the issues with staff payments, but more so is for us. That would impact us with our export is a lot of the work, a lot of the infrastructure work is really coming to a standstill, because if they can't pay the local government staff, well, they're not going to continue to build roads to nowhere, be it to nowhere or be it to other towns. So it's really going to have a huge snowball effect on us. And so when we go back to our first point, initial discussions with the syndicates, who are they buying for? As you and I have been saying, they are not buying for local, for Chinese, nationals. They're buying for Chinese families that have moved out of China years ago, and they're in other parts of the world that are poised to come into Australia.
Absolutely. And I'll make just one other point here. Tarek Brooker, the other day when I was speaking with him for his show last Friday, made a very interesting point about some of these regional councils and regional areas within China where effectively they're doing financial engineering, which basically is capital recycling to try and actually borrow the money again, as it were, to be able to try and support the economic. It's just like the global financial crisis all over again at that regional level. This could definitely come unglued, and if it does, I think it's going to have a very significant impact.
Well, and this is what Lee's saying in his article, and that is that China was basically able to walk out of the last international financial crisis, global financial crisis, because of its huge infrastructure spend, internal infrastructure spend. But there's just no resource. There's just no money to do that, to do it again this time around. But so for us, what it means for us is, look, not only is our third pillar of our economy going to be affected, tourism and overseas students, but also look at the effect on the which you, myself, and Tarek have been talking about, these further economic restraints and further economic pressures that have been placed on us. We're paying more for goods that are being imported if we get them. I ordered 7 pairs of undies last week, Martin. I only got they only delivered 3 briefs. It's just alarming. Pretty soon we're going to be walking around naked. It's crazy stuff, but this is the reality. You order things online, and you'd be lucky to get 50% of what you order, and what you do get is you're paying a lot more for it anyway. So all these issues, and the other thing, the scary thing is the the cost of pharmaceutical, and a lot of this stuff that we're depending on, a lot of the base products from India and from China, which we're not going to get. And I think Tarek also did an article with regards to the additive for the diesel fuel, the AdBlue, in the issues that we potentially going to be facing in the first quarter of next year. But then again, you and I raised it. We said 2021 was going to be hard, but wait for it. It's really going to start. The whole, all this effect was really going to happen in 2022, and we'd already been alluding as to the issues, not only around construction but everything else, because obviously construction is what we focus on tonight's show, but everything else that comes with it, because we import most of the goods. We say that we graze cattle, we graze sheep, we grow chickens, we have we grow food, we grow veggies, we have orchards and everything here in Australia. But get it from point A to the shopping center, from the originator to the shopping centers. And if you don't have packaging and if you don't have trucking facilities, how do you get it from point A to point B?
Yeah, it's a load of urea. Literally, right? Or that's the problem. They can't actually get it because basically China has basically restricted the exports of that particular product, right? Because they were trying to make sure that there's enough available within China to support the Chinese infrastructure in China. And that's created a huge shortage. Now, of course, everyone's saying, well, we'll be able to buy it from Indonesia or Middle East or whatever. But it's a big hole. And if, in fact, suddenly our diesel vehicles grind to a halt because of this magic ingredient that enables them to actually perform as expected, this could be a really big deal, I think, and cause a lot of pain, a lot of difficulty, higher transport costs, rationing of transportation. January onwards, watch this space.
Yeah, and look, you and I bought when we first started getting commentary, or the mainstream was starting to push what you and I were talking about in early 2020 with regards to the virus, with potential lockdowns and how the shifting sands were going to be moving around and how the population, the demographics were going to change drastically. You and I spoke about how freestanding homes and properties further out west were just going to be sought after, and regional towns were basically going to become unaffordable for the locals, and we sure as hell saw that happen. Now, I've been toying with the idea and I'm playing around with the idea in my head, is that all these prices for properties that are on 500, 600 square meters in built-up areas, pretty much close to the CBD, your North Shores, your lower North Shores, your upper North Shores, your central hubs around Parramatta and so forth, all these homes that are fetching ridiculous prices, even in the West, where you've got terraces. But at the end of the day, if you haven't got much ground, if you haven't got much room to grow anything, I mean, where's the future? That's what I've been saying. The mountains is the way to go, and regional further out into the region is where people are going to be headed for that space, for that freedom. Have we gone back? Have we done the full circle, Martin, and gone back to the 50s, 60s, and 70s, where a lot of families were using the backyards as little veggie gardens, and because we've done away with all the farming lands around, Busby, Liverpool, Cabramatta, all these, just in the southwest region, and then you've got your hills areas. I mean, they were market farms. They were the gardens. They were the market farms that supplied your Flemingtons and your Paddingtons and everything else. And now they're going further and further out west. So the thing is are these properties in the North Shores that are fetching your ridiculous 3.5, 4 million, 5, 6 million, and you can't do jack with it, are they going to be worth that much, in 4 years, 5 years time, 6 years time? I mean, it's really, again, I can see the sands shifting again. It's, that's just a thought I've been toying around in my head. Dusty and I have been, shooting the breeze up here in the mountains, Martin.
Well, that's right. And raised beds, of course, which you've been championing. And I've been eyeing up my patch here because I've got quite a lot of land. And I'm thinking, well, maybe I should also put some more raised beds in and grow a few more things myself, because prices down the shops, pretty high, but also the quality of the stuff that's being sold is going down and down and down. So, I bought some I bought some fruit and vegetables the other day, and it's like eating cardboard. There was no taste to it at all. So I think the time has come to launch the revolution and grow your own. Build your own first and then grow your own, right?
Build your own, grow your own. And but make sure you plant those carrot seeds the right way up.
Absolutely. Yeah, follow my advice there. You've got to get them the right way up. And let's talk numbers, right? Because numbers. What's happening there is quite interesting, right? So the listing numbers, well, you tell us. What's going on with the listing numbers, Edwin?
Well, listing numbers, although we've talked about the seasonal retreat of the listing numbers, for sale on Marketing Sydney. And this is just seasonal, but interestingly enough, is we're sitting pretty much on par and above the last year's numbers, which this year was a lot tougher, I think, for purchases. But I think it's getting a little bit. There's a lot more on market in terms of a year-on-year comparison. Apartments are certainly an interesting indicator at the moment as to how the overseas influence has impacted the construction industry and that, because they're certainly staying up on higher than previous years, and also the fact that they're staying on market a lot longer is another interesting point. We saw more apartment auctions get passed in or even taken off market over the weekend than freestanding homes. The appetite continues to be for freestanding homes, obviously, all over Sydney. But the other interesting point is in a tweet that Lindsay David brought out with regards to the numbers and how the hedonic daily index is noting a drop of 0.24% in Sydney and in Melbourne, and in that Twitter thread there, I chimed in with my comedy, and then Catherine Cashmore chimes in with her tweet, and which was rather interesting, Martin. She says wouldn't make a difference in Melbourne because Lindsay David, in his commentary says, let's raise, cut the rates to protect the hedonic daily index. And Catherine Cashmore says, wouldn't make any difference in Melbourne. Too much stock on the market in the city. Too many people leaving town. Not enough buyers coming in. The need to open the immigration floodgates. The need to open the immigration floodgates to reverse the trend. So interesting how the numbers numbers on market are correlating with sentiment, and yet when you look at it in the nuts and bolts, it's not a lot of difference in numbers, but it is what it is. That just tells you how close to the edge we are playing in that arena, and how inflated the market is. That I think there's more emotion plays a part in this than logic.
That's right, and you can also add the fact that we had a large number of auctions listed, but the clearance rates were also a lot lower as well over the last weekend. And we're also seeing, as you said and I said earlier on, more auctions being removed and private sales coming in instead, simply because the market appetite has completely changed. I think this is the early leading indicators. There's some significant changes to what's going on, and I wouldn't be surprised to see the listings continue to go higher in the early part of next year, because there's still a lot of people who are holding back and wondering what to do, and in the meantime they are becoming more and more prisoners of the properties they've got, which means that they're going to be almost forced to sell. So I think we're going to see more forced sales in the first quarter.
Well, and that leads us to the first article, Martin. The Queens. I think a lot of people have been waiting for the borders to open, and now the Queensland borders open, and there's 24,000 applications to cross the border. 24,000 to cross the border from New South Wales to Queensland. That's I think one of the articles brings out. So the question is outside of the headline of Queensland prepares for spiking cases as border reopens, I think the better headline would be Queensland should prepare for a rise in property prices as the border reopens. More to the point, not so much the people from New South Wales, but I think the Melbournians and the Victorians that are escaping in droves heading north, and I think now that the borders are open, now we're going to we may well see in the first quarter of 2022 a rise in for sale listings, because the people obviously they want to buy, they want to make sure that they can secure a property before they sell. And we're talking about the retirees. We're talking about the people, more so the people that don't have to, that don't necessarily even have to work from home. We're talking about people that are basically making a lifestyle, a complete lifestyle change. Call it a sea change, call it whatever you want to change, a state change, and they feel more safer and more comfortable in Queensland than they do in New South Wales, because it's more laid back. So I can foresee that there's going to be a lot more listings in the Shire, and not as much in certain parts of the North Shore, but further up towards Hornsby, and perhaps even the northwestern region is where a lot of people that I've spoken to and a lot of agents that I've been speaking to, where they're holding on to listings for people that haven't been able to make the transition, haven't been able to fly or get over the border to secure a property over in Queensland. And these are people that have basically cashed up. There's no mortgage on the home. They don't owe anything on the home, and they can buy before they sell.
Absolutely. Yeah, well, that's right. 50,000, I think, is the best estimate I've seen of the number of people who may be going up there to buy property in the next few months. So expect prices to continue to rise in Brisbane, the Gold Coast and other parts of Queensland. Very, very interesting to see how that plays out. Now, another one, algorithms.
Yeah, algorithm. This is an article from REB, obviously an online source that focuses on property. I just found it interesting that this contributor in this article makes a note of a couple of things. One, the need to have. Well, she does bring one point. Makes one point, serious point, and that is basically that. She feels that if you just use AI to sell a property, well, you could be the vendors could be doing themselves an injustice, which is fair enough, because you sort of take away the emotion. If you take away the emotion, you could literally take away 10% of the value of a property across the board. In some cases a little bit more. So I get that, but she also raises in point one. She raises that it's also leaving clients without an expert, advisor, or an advocate in a high stakes environment, and that is true. Potentially you are leaving the individual without that expert that knows the patch, that knows other homes in the area, inside and out. But the point that our audience needs to hear is obviously if you're looking at buying. So this is where we say that this is where that understanding of they've got an expert that knows how to manipulate buyers, that knows how to manipulate a lot of the emotion, play on emotion, play on that touchy-feely side of things, and they're experts at it, and that's why they get mandated the jobs to get the maximum for their client. But yet, as buyers, we're not used to that side of things, in adopting or consulting with a buyer's agent, but not necessarily going all the way to consult, on a full service with a buyer's agent, but also, a lot of people don't even take, even your side of the advice that you give on that when you drill down into a particular suburb, a particular street, in order for people to educate themselves that are looking at buying in particular suburbs or in particular neighbourhoods. So even that service is put to the side, and yet on the other side, they've got professionals that are paid good dollars to build and play on the emotion. That was point number one in the article. I don't know if you had anything to say on that, Martin.
Well, it's quite interesting, and I agree that the emotion is, absolutely to the fore. And a lot of people spend a lot of time trying to actually fire everybody up and all of those things. But my other point would be this, Edwin: algorithms might be okay in a relatively steady market in terms of trying to figure out, but when you've got so much volatility and so many changes as we've seen recently, the algorithms can't possibly keep up. So, to my mind, in a volatile market like we have at the moment, an uncertain market, you must be very cautious about using algorithms at all.
Yeah, look, and it could work against the buyers as well. It could basically, because the generation and these and the people that are reliant on technology and on AI they're going to think it's pretty much to them it's black and white. It is what it is. It's whatever is in front of them is the truth.
Mm.
But yet, there's a lot more to it. But this is where the second point comes into play, Martin, and then where she writes the artificial intelligence is just that, artificial. It isn't going to factor in a development going up on the back fence or cracks in the wall. I mean, I'm thinking, I sort of had to read that a number of times and said to myself, well, you withhold that information most of the time anyway as selling agents. And it's not like you're telling the truth. So maybe AI is a lot better in that way, because AI, it's just AI, it's just information in, data out, and you sort of thinking to myself, I just had to, chuckle on this point. In that case, I would prefer AI, Martin, because they're just going to tell me, they're going to look at the zonings. They're going to, the AI is going to look at the, refer back to the, planning maps of the local LGA, what's happening with the councils, what's this, what's that, and it's going to basically, you can bring all this information to the point. But I get what she's trying to say, but I think she failed to say it, because obviously it's one of those, when you're dealing with a lot of selling agents, it's a lot of smoke and mirrors.
Well, I always say garbage in, garbage out, right? And I think this is a classic example, right? Because unless you get the right information on the way in, you can't possibly get the right algorithm on the way out, and therefore it's a bit pointless.
Yeah, it's crazy. Anyway, it is what it is.
That's good. Now, what about this other one then, about the rental crisis? This is actually really concerning, because we are seeing more and more pressure in the rental sector, and my rental stress metrics continue to rise. Some people are being able to put the rents up, but that's just forcing people to shift into other, perhaps less salubrious environments.
Which is crazy. And this is where you and I have spoken at length about how this shows the failure of the state governments over the last 20 years, where they've just concentrated on building these crappy high-rise shoe boxes that have got, that don't have adequate ventilation, and you just can't really, they won't accommodate a young family. I mean, young families live in them, but they're not necessarily to a standard that one would say that they should accommodate a young family. So this is the failure of where basically the state government of all persuasions over the last 2.5 decades have literally dropped the ball, Martin. And now we've had one incident that's obviously a global incident, but nevertheless it's one that has exposed the shortfall of the New South Wales government, and how where they should have been building infrastructure and should have been focusing on infrastructure in the regional areas, in the outside of Sydney, outside of the CBDs. I'm reminded of the podcast that we did, All Roads Lead to Sydney, as to how everything got pushed into the city, everything's literally to build up the nest eggs of the politicians that have got investments in closer by to the city and around their neighbourhoods. But yet the regional areas just got left behind. And this is the unfortunate thing. This is the aftermath. What I can see is I've got these images of Detroit, and all these full caravan parks turning into full-time, no longer into weekend caravan parks or holiday caravan parks, but full-time accommodation and permanent accommodation for only God knows how long. And yet the state government continues to peddle the building of 3,000 or so dwellings between Mount Druitt and St Mary's, and another 5,000 or so in the northwest region. And these shoe boxes that really aren't being built to accommodate people that want to stay in the neighborhoods, in the areas where they were born and grew up in. There's no real job future. There's no real job prospect. And what's next for them to do, man? You can't even say, oh, they should be looking. Perhaps they're the ones that should be taking and occupying the vacant apartments in the central hubs, in the CBDs of Sydney, Chatswood, and Parramatta and Hurstville, and that because quite frankly, a lot of these people are unfortunate people that have to rely on the government to supplement their rental incomes, and as a property manager. And being involved in property management for over 2 decades, I could see how a lot of agencies do discriminate against people that have that have got some sort of disability or some sort of support structure or scheme with the government that subsidises their rent, and they're not seen as favourable tenants, so they're going to be pushed further afield, and it's a sad state of affairs.
Well, I absolutely agree on that. And living in tents or living in Winnebagos or whatever the version is doesn't make a lot of sense. But you make a really interesting point. There are many vacant, particularly apartments across our cities. Those apartments should be brought into service, in my view. And I think that's should be an initiative. Basically, it should be, if it's not going to be let, immediately, then surely it should be let on a different basis to those who need it. Because the problem we've got at the moment is that a lot of people are unable to get access at a reasonable price to get any accommodation in any of these areas. If we don't solve this, we're going to have a really big social issue down the track.
Oh, look, definitely, and this is the thing, Martin. Well, I've raised it many times on our podcast, on our rants, and that is, I know how much the industry discriminates against many people in the rental arena, and this is I know the discrimination that happens against the people that have got pets. And I've written about it. I even put out articles on Domain and on other platforms where tongue in cheek, where I've said that in my history as a property manager and running a property management team, historically I prefer to have people with pets than people with little kids and that have got no control over crayons. And that was tongue in cheek. That was tongue in cheek to raise a point of how much people that have pets were being discriminated against. And then you've got the people that are obviously relying, single parents that are relying on the government to subsidise the rents, and how they get discriminated against. More so now when the rents are the migration from the Sydney. From the big smoke has been further out into regional areas. More so because obviously investors can get more money. And the other one that I think we raised about 6 months ago was the discrimination, with regards to tenancy applications in a major franchise group. That were being taught to look at the job criteria in order to determine whether or not that applicant was going to be successful. Meaning, if they were in a particular sector, such as the hospitality or retail, that was a big no, a big cross, a big red flag. And this sort of thing happens in the industry, and no amount of legislation, no amount of regulations has been able to curb that, because it's an unwritten rule that property management teams have and they run by.
Yeah, and I'll tell you one other little thing. I had a conversation with someone the other day who is enjoying the new right to have a pet in their building. Right, they've changed the rules in New South Wales, but they've now brought in a pet bond. So you can actually have a pet, but you've got to pay an extra, I think it's $2,000 or $3,000 to be able to do it, right? And that's not actually, that wasn't legislated in the legislation as it was there. So they're trying to go through the back door to turn it off again.
Yeah, it is crazy. And in my commentary and in the articles or where I've been quoted in the mainstream media, in previous years. I've said this all, and this all comes back to one thing, Martin, and it doesn't come back to the pet owner or the tenant. It really comes back to the property management.
Yep.
It comes back to the lethargy of the property management teams that just basically look. You're going to have issues with tenants, whether they've got pets, whether they've got children, whether they don't have pets, whether they don't have children, whether the single, married, you call it. You're going to have your troublesome tenants. But if the property management team don't do the job and don't make their presence known on a regular basis, if they're only going to visit the property every 12 months, or in some cases that we've come across managements that we've picked up from other management teams where the tenants haven't seen the property managers for 24 months, and in one case for 36 months. I mean, what do you expect? What do you expect? And when you don't attend to also rectification work, I mean, it really comes back to the property management teams. There's a lot more owners that should be going. Yeah, but that's crazy stuff, Martin. It's crazy stuff, and it needs to be hit on the head quick, smart.
Absolutely, yeah. Well, there's plenty of things that should be hit over the head quick, smart, right? In the property sector, it seems to be the environment that we inhabit.
But it's imaginary, Martin. It's imaginary.
Oh, it's imaginary. It doesn't exist. Okay, yeah. We'll click our fingers, tap our toes, and everything will be fine.
An illusion.
It's an illusion. I knew it was an illusion. Okay. Well, here's another illusion, right? Tip for the week, a very important one at this time of year.
Look, it is, man. It is. Look, this is my tip for the week. So don't overstay your end of year outing with your colleagues. Don't overstay and don't overdrink. Because you're going to get caught out one way or another. The first way you're generally going to get caught out is the booze bus is going to catch you out on the way home if you overdrink. And if you stay there for too long, that variant bug will definitely get you, man. So don't overstay. You're welcome at these short and sweet. High and by sort of stuff is my tip. Have a drink and then take off, because you're going to get caught out one way or another, man. That's just, I'm just putting it out there.
Well, may I suggest that the answer is to get one of those masks, right? Cut a small hole in it, put a straw in so that you can actually get your drink. That might give you a little extra protection, but I agree. Whichever way you look at it, you're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't, right?
This is, look, it's great. Look, and this is the whole, look, we could go around and we could have a lot of fun. You can have a lot of fun with all this, but look at everything else that's being forgotten. Look at all everything else in terms of, it's all hugs and kisses and handshaking and everything else now. Everything that, the whole idea of the fact that the little bug can sit around different surfaces, or even your hands or your palms, and you're touching your nose and coughing and so forth. All these things are forgotten. We've forgotten about all that, but hey, perhaps another a conversation for another day on another podcast.
Well, yeah, I think Operation Omicron might have something to say about that, but we won't talk about that now. But I will just make the point in closing that it is quite convenient that just at the point when the Federal Reserve was going to tackle inflation and have to put rates up, Omicron appears. Convenient, huh?
No, it is convenient, and it disappears. It disappears at the politicians' end of year parties, I'm told. It just tends to go away.
Well, that's clearly because the bug is actually running away from politicians.
True. There you go. See? There you go. I think that was one of our previous tips earlier on in the year.
It was.
Look for if you're going to look for a new job, start applying to become a local politician. There's absolutely a lot of brown paper bags, and the bug doesn't get you.
Exactly. Edwin, as always, great pleasure to share some thoughts with you. Thank you very much for that. And we'll do it all again next week. And I would just tell our viewers that we plan to continue over the next few weeks through the holiday festive season, right? There's always stuff to talk about.
Yeah, we don't disappear, Martin. They don't call us the Omicron twins.
No, I hope not. Okay. See you later. Take care. Bye-bye.